Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at a very important accessory for your GoPro Hero 9. As a matter of fact, for any camera on the market. Now, as the title suggests, we are looking at ND filters for the GoPro Hero 9 Black. And we're looking at ND filters and understanding them in general so that you can apply the knowledge that I give you in this video to any camera that you own in the market, and you understand why these filters are essential for filmmaker, photographer, or video creator out there. So the ND filters that we're looking at today are made by a brand called Telesin. Telesin is a more affordable brand out there that makes ND filters, and according to me, these are probably the cheapest and best ND filters that you can get in this price range for your GoPro Hero 9 and for various other cameras on the market. There are other brands in the market that make ND filters for various cameras such as Polo Pro and Freeware, where these ND filters are not too expensive, but they give you fantastic image quality and they do the job that they're required to do. So what are ND filters? ND filters are neutral density filters. And what do these filters actually do for you? What they basically do for you is they reduce the amount of light that is entering your camera lens, hence controlling the exposure of your camera without actually having to go into your camera settings and adjusting anything. They're also known as sunglasses for your camera. You put them on, they block out a certain amount of light and they will control the exposure for you, which brings me to my next point as to why do you really need ND filters on your camera. Now, there are various reasons why you could need ND filters on your camera, but the main reason is for you to be able to shoot cinematic video, which is a term that's very loosely used here on YouTube. But yes, it's a fact. To shoot cinematic video, you need a certain amount of motion blur in your video because your eyes, they're used to seeing motion blur. When you see a car passing by, you see there's a blur. You don't see the whole car crispy and sharp passing by. You'll always see a certain amount of blur in any kind of motion that your eyes are pointed towards. And in order to get that motion blur is why you need ND filters. Now, in order to film any kind of cinematic video, an ideal standard in the industry is to follow the 180-degree shutter rule. Now, the 180-degree shutter rule is pretty simple. If you're shooting your video at 24 frames per second, what you're going to want to do is you want to take your shutter speed on your camera and set it up at double of your frame rate, which basically means if you're shooting a video at 24 frames per second, you want your shutter speed to be 48. So you're going to keep it at 1/48. Basically means if you're shooting at 30 frames per second, you're going to keep your shutter speed at 1/60. And if you're shooting at 120 frames per second, you're going to keep your shutter speed at 1/240. This is the 180-degree shutter rule. You just double your shutter speed and you get a good amount of motion blur in your image. Like you can see my hand right now, it's moving, but it has a good amount of motion blur in it, and that's what your eyes are used to seeing. This is pretty much a cinematic standard in the industry and everyone just follows it, and this is what I suggest you follow too if you really want a crispy cinematic looking videos. But there is a downside to filming with the 180-degree shutter rule when you're trying to shoot any cinematic video, which is when you set up your shutter speed at double of your frame rate in a lot of bright conditions, especially when you're shooting outdoors, you're going to see that your image just gets overexposed. And there's a reason behind that. That's because when you lower your shutter speed, which is at 1/48 for example, there's going to be a large amount of light that enters your camera. Shutter speed not only controls your motion blur, but it also controls the brightness of your image or the exposure. And your image is just going to be overexposed. And that's exactly where ND filters come into place. Now I'm going to show you what it actually looks like when you set up your camera at 24 frames per second with a shutter speed of 1/48. Let's do this. So this is a quick vlogging test on the Hero 9 Black. I have my frame rate at 24 frames per second. I have my shutter speed at 1/48. And you guys can see that my face is extremely blown out. I literally look like a vampire right now. This image is overexposed. And this is what happens when you're using the 180-degree rule in bright condition. Now, as you guys saw, that image was crazy overexposed when my shutter speed was set up as per the 180-degree rule. Now, in such scenarios, what you can basically do is either you can break the 180-degree rule and increase your shutter speed so that you get the adequate exposure for your image. It's going to give you the right exposure, but it's going to take away the motion blur from your image, which means your video is no longer that much more cinematic looking. Or the other option is that you stick to the 180-degree shutter rule, but then you have an overexposed image. So in both conditions, both these options are not viable, you guys. You're not going to get that cinematic look in one option, and the other option, you're going to have an overexposed image with a cinematic look, which is basically useless and pointless. So instead, what you do is you take your camera, you maintain your 180-degree shutter rule on this camera, take a sunglass that is an ND filter or a neutral density filter, put it on top of your camera lens. This is going to cut out the amount of light that enters your camera. You're going to have a well-exposed image, and you're also going to have a shutter speed that allows you to have adequate motion blur. So your image is also going to remain cinematic at the same time. Okay, so we have the exact same settings. My face is still overexposed. This is still shutter speed 1/48 with 24 frames per second. We're going to add an ND filter and see how the image comes down to a better exposure, especially with respect to my face. I won't look like a vampire anymore. Okay, so I've just snapped on ND filter. You can see that my skin tone has completely changed. It's come back to a more realistic skin tone. Of course, the background is not well exposed at the moment, so it's completely darkened out. But if you're outdoors, this will help you get your face in better exposure. It'll also help you get an overall better exposure, even when your surroundings are extremely well lit and extremely bright. As you can see, the ND filter makes a massive difference, you guys. Now, another place you can use ND filters is when you're filming night lapses and you want to capture stars, or you want to capture motion, or you want to capture light streaks, and ND filter really helps with that. Let's take a look. In order to shoot this, I had kept the GoPro on complete automatic settings. The only setting that I had dialed in was the maximum ISO, which I'd left at 800 because I didn't want the footage to get too grainy. The shot that you're looking at right now is shot with the ND8 filter on the GoPro, and the next shot's going to be with the ND16. You can see an increase in motion blur and light trails as I change the ND filter. Now that's how I use an ND filter for my night lapses to give my night lapses a slightly better creative touch. The reason why I chose the Telesin ND filters is because they're extremely economical. Like, a pack of 4 will cost you around 3,000 rupees and a pack of 3 will cost you about 2,100 rupees. Quickly take a look at the box and the packaging that these filters come in. It's just a really tiny box, and your box will probably look a lot better than the one that I have because mine's already a couple of months old. When you open up the box on the inside, you're going to see 3 filters inside this box. You can get a pack of 3 or a pack of 4, but you have to remember, when you get a pack of 4, you're going to get only 3 ND filters and 1 circular polarizing filter. That's got a completely different use. It's very different to what we have. As you can see, the ND filter that I'm holding in my hand is really tiny. It slips right on top of the lens on your GoPro. It has a nice rubber seal that's going to avoid it from falling off and not let any dirt get inside when you clip it onto your GoPro. Overall, it has an aluminium frame and has dark glass which is completely coated to avoid any glare. I think it's really well built, and mounting it is extremely easy where you just slip it on top of your GoPro. Now, putting the filter on like this does increase the overall size of your GoPro by a little bit, but I think the black filter just looks super cool. As you can see, I have the ND8 filter that's mounted on my GoPro at this moment. In the box, you also receive an ND16 and an ND32 filter. The ND8 filter gives you about 3 stops of light, 16 gives you 4 stops of light, and the 32 gives you about 5 stops of light. What it basically means is, in the morning you start with the ND8, and as the day progresses, you slowly move up to ND16 and 32. Overall, they're really well built. They have great image quality, they get the job done, and they fit really well on top of your GoPro. As you guys can see, I'm shaking my GoPro here, but the filter is not going to pop off. It's a really secure and snug fit on top of your GoPro. Overall, they're great performers and they're great value for money if you pick up this brand. Furthermore, these are easily available in India. You can get them on Amazon India, whereas other brands are not that easily accessible in India, and also their prices are a lot higher. Of course, the image quality and the glass that's used by those brands is definitely going to be better. The build quality is definitely better, and they also mount onto your GoPro in a different way. So there are a few perks if you get the more expensive brands. I know majority of the audience is going to want to start off with a more budget option, and that's where Telesin comes in. Furthermore, this video is not sponsored by Telesin. I'm just like you guys. I wanted to start off with a budget option and really experiment and learn my way around ND filters, and that's why I went for this. A quick tip when you're picking up ND filters for any camera in the market is you want to stick to a standard brand, a brand that's well known for their quality of filters, because ND filters, while they do a lot for your photography and your videography, they can cause a certain amount of vignetting in your image, and they can actually even ruin your image if you're using poor quality glass on the filters. So you want to stick to brands that are well known, and you're always going to have a good experience. So 3 brands that I would recommend with respect to ND filters would be Telesin, which is the all-round budget option. You have Polar Pro, which is the high-profile, super expensive but best quality option that you can get out there. And there's also a brand known as Freewell. Now, Freewell I've never really used, but there are a lot of creators who on YouTube who swear by Freewell products and ND filters. So you can definitely check out those reviews and try and get yourself a pair of Freewell ND filters. And that's basically it. This video was a short video on ND filters for your GoPro Hero 9 Black. I want to tell you guys why these filters help you, why these filters are really useful. And I've already talked about ND filters in my GoPro travel accessories kit, but I thought it was time to make a dedicated video because I've been experimenting with these filters for the last few months. I've had a fantastic experience. I pretty much never shoot a time lapse on my GoPro without an ND filter on top of it anymore, because it just gives my time lapses a much better look. Also, when I'm back out at sea, this is going to be extremely useful, especially when I'm shooting outdoor under really bright conditions. It's just going to be a lot easier to snap this onto my GoPro, and the entire exposure will be taken care of by this little piece of glass. If you're a filmmaker, a content creator, you want to get a little bit more and get that little creative touch into your cameras, do check these out. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to like and share, hit the bell notification icon. There's going to be a lot more tech tips on this channel, as well as a lot more maritime based content. Stay tuned for more. This is Nitin Chawla. Thanks for watching. Peace.